From SportBikeTrackGear.com, and today we're going to install a set of CRG RC2 levers on our 2014 Yamaha FZ-09 project bike. Installing aftermarket levers is one of the most common mods that you're going to make to a street or a track bike. Benefits are increased adjustability and for sure much better aesthetics. The RC2 levers are gorgeous. Let's pull one out here and give you a closer look. These are available in multiple colors. We opted to go with black. We felt this was going to be the best choice for our FZ-09. It's got the nice red clickers on it. The quality from CRG is amazing. They're still without a doubt the leader, in my opinion, in the aftermarket lever category. We sell a ton of their stuff and everybody loves it because they do a phenomenal job. Installing the levers on a bike, I realize it seems like a pretty simple project, and it is, but there are a few fine details that you really need to make sure that you pay attention to. Each of the levers comes with a disclaimer. It's very important that when you get your controls done, they operate smoothly, and you double and triple check your installation to make sure you're not going to have any issues, especially on that brake side. If you misinstall that and the brake is binding, it can have a catastrophic end result. You certainly don't want that. You don't want to take what should be on the surface an easy project and have it turn into a full-blown debacle on the other side. So we're going to kind of show you how we install the levers on our bike, and you can use that to install yours. I think we've got a couple of helpful tips that you can use along the way. Got all my tools laid out over here on the other side. We get the levers out of the packages, and we're going to get rolling. We're going to begin on the brake side of the Yamaha. Let's take a look at what it's going to take to do this. We've got a threaded set screw here that has a 10mm backup nut on the other side for the brake lever. So I'm going to use a medium-sized flat-bladed screwdriver and 10mm wrench to get this started. One of the key points here is lubricating anywhere the lever comes in contact with the brake piston or with this actual pivot. You need this to move freely and smoothly. Let's set this stuff to the side. Let's kind of give you a head-to-head comparison here between the two. You can see definitely a lot more engineering goes into this CRG RC2 lever. Okay, lubrication points and things to look for that I feel are really important. Here is your brake master cylinder piston, right? You need to have a little bit of lubrication in here at that pivot point. It's very key that that moves freely and there's no binding. Another key spot to have some lubrication is inside the pivot for the actual lever itself. What we're going to do to facilitate that is a little bit of grease here. This isn't something where you really need to overdo it. It just needs just a little bit. Let's get that in there. And here. The best way to lubricate a pivot point like this, you see I have an old Phillips screwdriver that I use, and I actually ground the end off of it. And we're able to put the grease right on it, so you can get it in there and apply a thin film over the entire floor. Now let's go ahead and slide this into position. The thing that I'm really going to pay attention to here is that brake piston push rod. Make sure I've got that lined up and seated properly. Once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and get that pivot started. this thread in there, get it started. Okay, let's get that lever pivot down in there, get it seated so it threads will start. And there it goes, it's threading through the bottom of the master cylinder casting. Let's check the action, make sure everything feels good. Nice and smooth. This is not something you need to over torque, because remember, we have a backup nut. It's on here, it's actually a locking nut, so that once you have it torqued down, it will not wiggle loose. So there's no need for any kind of thread lock or anything here. Go ahead and get that started. I want to grab our 10mm wrench. And thread that on. Once again, we don't need a ton of torque here, because the key is this lever needs to pivot freely. Like so. Everything looks great, feels great. And go ahead and just a little bit of excess grease there. I want to clean that up. Give that a nice clean job. Check the action, piston, everything looks good. You can hear the brake switch actuating. You know, what we'll do as well is we're going to go ahead and just turn on the key. Make sure the brake light is functional. Brake light's working fine, nice smooth action there in the back. So we're good to go. Now let's go over to the clutch side. We're going to need to loosen up our driven California mirror so we can actually get the pivot bolt out. Do that. This is also held on by a 10mm nut, and you know what, clearance is a little tight over here. I'm going to remove the switch pod real quick too. This is just going to allow us to get in here easier. Two screws, the switch pod's going to come right off, and this will make this a whole lot easier for us. Switch pod off, and feed it through like so. Grab that 10mm wrench back. Go ahead and remove the lock nut. I'm just going to use a lock nut like we showed you on the other side, on the brake lever side. You could also use a socket and a ratchet here if you wanted to as well. Or a nut driver with a 10mm socket on it would work well. Push pivot through. Okay, and you can see the way this is set up. You don't need anything to back this up here. It's actually keyed, so when it's lined up with the perch properly, it holds itself in place and allows you to torque this down. Let's go ahead and put the pivot over here. And now the clutch lever itself. Every bike's a little bit different. On this bike, I think I'm going to be able to slide the clutch cable out of the lever without making any adjustments to the clutch. I was able to do so. Key point here, there's a bushing that rides inside the stock lever. We need to transfer this over to the new stuff. Come over here, and once again, grease. Definitely want to add some grease in here. Repeat the process that we showed you on the other side. Push this bushing through like so. reinstall this. I'm going to use a pair of needle nose pliers. And I'm going to pull that clutch cable out. I'm putting basically zero pressure on this, right? I'm not going to deform the cable in any way, shape, or form. Just want to hold it to get it in there. Let's go ahead and pivot this around and slide it up into place. Things to watch for here: make sure your clutch switch gauging okay. All right, we got that. Let's go back over and get my pivot, get the wrench, and let's put this bad boy back together. And there, get that lined up. Once we're done, we may need to make a slight adjustment to our clutch lever, where the cable attaches to it. You know, we are swapping the lever out. It's possible that we're going to have, you know, a change in the clutch free plane. We want to make sure that we keep that consistent. These are all things that we're going to do before the motorcycle is ridden again. Go ahead and snug this up. In terms of torque here, just like we showed you on the other side, you know, it's really important that everything moves freely, so do not over tighten this. So you've got good action there. It feels fine. Gonna need to feed just a little bit of a clutch cable adjustment into that. A little more free play than I normally like to have, but that's not a big deal. Take care of that pretty easy right up there at the clutch perch itself. Now we need to put our switch pod back on. These levers are going to be a real nice addition to this bike. This whole control area just looks phenomenal. All the driven pieces that we have up here too. Okay, that's done. Got to reposition our California mirror. You know, we're going to have to make some adjustments to this, you know, once we get the bike outside. That's not a problem. Okay. Now, just want to get on the bike and kind of dial the levers in just a little bit before we take it out and test drive it. It's a little more clutch free play than I'd like to see, so we're going to dial some of that out. Okay, we'll verify that, of course, with the motor running. So let's set the lever position. got a nice baseline to begin with. Remember, before you ride this motorcycle, it's really important you double check, triple check, let's make sure that that clutch switch is working, right? So you're able to start the motorcycle and you've got the clutch pulled in. All these things are critical to safe operation for this motorcycle, and they're important steps in lever replacement that really need to be considered. I think one of the biggest tips we shared with you is lubrication. Get some good grease. Thin film of it in there makes a huge difference, keeps the controls operating smoothly. This is our CRG RC2 lever install on a 2014 Yamaha FZ-09 project.